Hello and welcome to another edition of Kaleidoscope on Channels Television. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. I'm Anne Nwawadu. On Kaleidoscope today, our chat with the founder of Adeola Azeez Community Care Foundation, Mrs. Adeola Azeez, reveals the various initiatives impacting the society positively. Once again, welcome. Let's begin with finding out about the Adeola Azeez Community Care Foundation and its objectives. The Adeola Azeez Community Care Foundation is a non-profit organization focused on empowering, enlightening and fostering engaged citizenship. Its mission is to advance the cause of unleashing Nigeria's potentials by empowering and enlightening the people in their roles as citizens across the socio-economic divide, with emphasis on women and the youth. Its vision is to nurture a nation where every citizen is an active participant and their rights, duties and responsibilities are guaranteed and respected. Let's now hear from the founder of AACCF, Mrs. Adeola Azeez. What is the story behind the Adeola Azeez Community Care Foundation? I mean, how did this journey begin?
Wow. It's a fairly, well, not too long story, but I'll tell you from the get-go that I was due to retire in December 2020. So long before that retirement, I was thinking what I was going to do. I've always been politically aware, but not politically engaged. I was brought up in a political setting. So my father go in and out, politicking, and my mother took care of us. So that was my background. So by 2015, when I was beginning to think 5 years down the line, what was I going to be doing? You know, as a founder of WIMBIZ, we needed to start the political arm of our organization, beginning to think of women in politics. So I was practically one of the only founding trustee that was politically inclined. So I championed that, you know, we set it up. I was at the forefront and beginning to gather women activities and what we needed to do. Anyway, so I retired. I retired December 2020, it was COVID, if you remember. So 2021, I enrolled in School of Politics, Policy and Governance because I knew that if I was going to go into governance or politics or whatever it was, I needed to go through a transition period. I needed to go to school, I needed to study, I needed to learn and relearn. So School of Politics, Policy and Politics just birthed. And it was just what I needed at the right time. You know, it's an offshoot of Fixed Politics. So I enrolled in March, and it was the beginning of my preparation to engage active citizen participation, governance, communities, because I had been at the top echelon in the private sector, in the corporate sector. I'd seen what it is out there, structure, development, strategy. And I thought there was a lot wrong, or there was a lot that needed to be done, not particularly wrong in Nigeria. And I was particularly concerned about the role of women. I was concerned that we didn't have a woman who will transition from the corporate sector, from the perks of office in the corporate sector, and going down to the grassroots to engage. I mean, that is the rough, unstructured, sort of dirty bit of it. And I must say that I've researched. I'm the first woman to do that, to transition from that level down to the grassroots. Anyway, SPPG, I enrolled, that was in March. In that same year, I recall, in July 24th, to be precise, Lagos State held its local government election. So you can imagine, from being in school, and I had an opportunity there was an election coming. Let me see how it's going to pan out. And lo and behold, I remember it was a Saturday morning. I was eager, and I was like, I was going to, make sure, because I had not participated, to be honest, in a local government election. So I went out with my pap, with my moi, with my hat and chairs ready to, I knew it was going to be a long day. And I got to my polling unit. There was nobody there. I saw one or two of my friends, male bankers, and we're like, what's happening? Is it happening? Where are people? So I began to walk my phones to call them. So where are I mean, nobody knew what was going on. They didn't know what was going on. So Daddy, what are you talking about? Well, anyway, I'm in front of the TV. It's like a public holiday to them. I was a little angry. I was a little disappointed that these are the elite who sit back and complain, and then an opportunity has arisen to engage at the bottom of the, local government chairman was who we were going to appoint, to vote for. And they were the closest to the community where we live, and we are missing. Anyway, long story cut short, I was really, immediately, I did a video, that video went viral. Then that same year, October 6th is my birthday. So I thought, you know what? I need to capture this experience that I had in July into an article. And that article, I published it on my birthday, 6th of October. So it was of change and choices in 2023. Don't forget we were in 2021. The role of the youth, women, and the elite. That was that was the title of that publication, and it went viral. So I thought, okay, it was gaining momentum, and that was the beginning of my active citizen participation. Then, after my birthday, I decided that, you know what, let me commission, a bunch of researchers to go into my community in Ogun State, to go and feel the pulse, the population, what were their needs, how do they feel about politics, how do they feel about the general, state of affairs, in that community. I was lucky, I got a grant to do that. And from there, it came out with a needs assessment report. So it talked and showed massive multidimensional poverty, infrastructural defect, high unemployment, lack of pipe-borne water. You know what it is like, no roads, everything. So I thought, okay, this will be a starting point. So, they did qualitative and quantitative research, to just gather and get as much information as possible. So that was the beginning of Adeola Azeez Community Care Foundation. Because you gather all of this, it needed to come into a structure, into what I needed to do so that I can, have it in the 3 legs and 3 dimensions that I wanted to engage in. So I thought, okay, so we'll be about intervention, we'll be about advocacy, and of course I wanted to align with something. It just can't be that. And I thought the most that the world is trying to take care of is the Sustainable Development Goals. So I thought, okay, if I did that, do intervene, do the advocacy, and whatever it is that I was going to do would be in line with the SDGs. So in a nutshell, that is the birth of Adeola Azeez Community Care Foundation.
Let's talk about the various areas and sectors you pay attention to as you do your activities in the foundation.
Okay. So recall I said that I did a needs assessment to be able to figure out what the areas of my intervention would be. And of course, the primary areas were women, children, youth. And I knew in my mind from the lessons learned from the SPPG that I needed to weave technology around every action, every intervention, or even with advocacy around it. Because I did a lot in the community, starting with the women empowerment in terms of the farmers. I encourage different sectors of women, piggery farming, cash crop farming, animal husbandry, and recently I did the general women, the Agritech farming, where I was empowering women in farming via technology. So there were also the women who, I was also concerned about the aged, the disadvantaged, the elderly, the physically enabled, we call them. I empowered some of them, those who went to school, had children, I took over their education, made sure that they were receiving proper health care and all of that. So for the youth, the key thing in my address and when I engage them is that whatever you do, please begin to embrace technology. That is the only way your generation will be relevant. Because if you do not embrace technology, you're going nowhere. So I sunk that into their minds and they embraced it. So as a result, right, for those who were interested and who were serious, I said because I also did a survey of what the needs, of what the youth in that environment wanted. I did an upskill and upgrade survey, and they all kind of, boxed themselves or advised what they really wanted. Those who wanted to do tailoring, barbing, technology, all of that. I said with all of those, there's still an element of technology in it. So I enrolled about 9 of them into Etiwa Tech, where they studied data analytics, and, they thoroughly enjoyed it. Some of them are taking, they've added it to their CV, they're looking for jobs, some are gainfully employed. There's a particular guy who got a work by basically coming from the community and having that knowledge. So he's doing very well in an entrepreneur's office in Ibadan, right? So for the youth, there was that. And then there were some youth in the artisans as well, so I empowered them. I basically partnered with another, I'll tell you all about my partners later, with a financial institution who was able, to grant them soft loans, mini loans for day-to-day running. For some of them, I gave them grants to work, okay? Now, for education, for the children, I did school supplies. They were back to school. I did school supplies where I also raised funds, from my women, right? And they really supported me in that, where each package to a child, I priced it at 1,000 naira. And it include notebooks, pencil, ruler, sharpener. And I gave that out to 3,000 children. They were going back to school in, I think it was September 2022. Health, right. I renovated health centers, right. I equipped university beds, bed sheets. They were really, really run down, especially in my ward. There was a particular health center, again, in Ishiwo, I remembered. The women were crying out for ultrasound machine because the women had to travel far out when they were pregnant to have their scanning done. And you wouldn't believe it. Some of them said that in the process of going through the bad roads to get to the hospitals where they could have the scan, they lost their pregnancy. That really gripped me. And, again, I was lucky. I got flying doctors, she supported me, and we were able to furnish that particular health center with an ultrascan machine. And of course, with technology, right, I partnered with one of the notable telecoms company, and there was a particular community in Enyosho, in one of my communities, totally cut out from the world, right? No communication, no power, access to roads, access to farms, none. And this was a community where they had cocoa, cashew nuts, palm kernel, and all of that. It was as if they were not part of Nigeria. Again, I thought so. And then for most of them, if they wanted to get hooked onto a network, they would put their phones on top of the roof or on a tree And it's like, are we in Nigeria? Do you understand what I mean? So I was able to speak to one of these telecoms company, Adeola, I would say, and they brought a 5G mast into that community. So they've been able to connect to communication, security. I mean, the youth in that community could do their online communication studies and all of that. And then those who have their markets ready, access to markets, right? So if they wanted to go to town, they would call their supposed end users who wanted to buy their crops from them. They would say, oh, I'm coming to the market on Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm coming with this, what quantity do you? So there was ease of communication.
We have more for you on Kaleidoscope when we return. Please stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching Kaleidoscope on Channels Television. In the final part of the conversation, we find out what Mrs. Adeola Azeez hopes to see in AACCF in the future. You recently organized the Agritech program. Share with us the aim and what you hope to achieve with this program.
Okay, to be honest, Agritech, I don't want to say Agritech was accidental. What I was trying to achieve by that event, which is the second, was the celebration of International Women's Day. That was actually what I was celebrating. But the strategy that I've adopted in celebrating International Women's Day in my community, because they've never experienced it, was I would choose year on year different sectors of women to celebrate, to pamper. So this year, I just chose women in farming, women in agriculture. And of course, there's been a lot of agri talk around the country. And I thought, this is good. And I particularly liked the theme of the International Women's Day this year. It says, invest in women, accelerate growth. Right. So I thought, okay, it rang a bell. And I said, okay, I had a database of women, but I wanted it to be across Ijebuland. And I was lucky to partner with Harvest, founded by Sholape Akinkwelu. And she runs one of the best agri-tech companies in Nigeria. So it was easy for me to partner with her. And that was the birth of Agritech. So now that I've done, and it was a huge success, I would have to have another line of thought for it to continue. Because I just thought, because next year could be women in health I could focus on, or it could be women in other sectors, So this year was just the Agritech. And the driver for that for me was basically to, again, celebrate women, let them know that they can scale their agri-business, whether or not they're literate or not, as long as they have an Android phone. With the USSD, they are able to be taught and they can practicalize what they've learned. Also to foster productivity and deal with food availability. So that was that. And also for me to bring the attention of government that women in agriculture need support. And the support would be, let's talk about women having access to land. Right? Access to machinery, access to fertilizers, seeds, and feeds for their growth, and for them to understand that they need to prioritize this, because who are those in the farmlands? The majority of them are women, right? So if they can get this support, again, and of course I invited the Ogun State government commissioner for agriculture. They were all there supporting what I was doing. So it was good. And Wema Bank, they were great. They loved the theme, and it was easy for them to also support me. So basically, again, it's awareness, it's advocacy, and opportunity again for the women to approach Wema Bank if they needed soft loan or whatever. And I also charged them that, look, these women also need insurance. What they're doing is hard labor. What are they doing to protect them? What can we do to protect them? Could we have mini insurance, 15,000, whatever, so if they have mini ailments and co, they know where to go to, to take care of themselves. So that was what the Agritech was all about, and I'm glad that it was a huge success.
Let's take a look at the issue of gender equality, since we're talking about the SDGs. How do you think government and the private sectors can come together to bridge the gap? We'd also talk about the narrative of women not supporting women, but as the founder of WIMBIZ, what do you think can be done to change that narrative?
It's so simple. And, you know, anytime I talk about this, I well up. And the 5 gender bills that were thrown out, I think 2022 or 2023, if government, the current administration, starting from the House of Representatives, can bring that back to the table, right? And the proponents of those bills, if we need to sit back, change the wording, change whatever was offending to those who did not support the bills. And what are we talking about? We're talking about citizenship, we're talking about indigenship, we're talking of call to action, special seats for women, we're talking about 10% of women in the in appointment, in the ministerial seat, you know, all of that. So again, why is that difficult to achieve? So my position on that is, let's bring back, and advocacy should continue on that. If we need to lobby the legislators and those who would make it happen for us, let's do it. But it must happen before we can begin to talk of a closure of gap. So if that happens naturally, then there's a level playing field. Women not supporting women. In WIMBIZ, as a founder, we don't go by that narrative. Our narrative is women should, must, and are supporting women. Okay? I know that the issues like that, but one of the impact, one of the sing-song that we want to do is to ensure that we celebrate each other, we encourage each other, we mentor. We have a mentoring institute whereby we mentor the younger girls. We tell them to build their confidence. We also tell them the power of networking. They must network among each other, and they must network with the men too, you know, to advance, to progress. They must do that. So the most important thing, again, that we also do is that we equip the women. We skill them up so that they'll be able to stand tall, stand at par with the men and women, so that the women at the top will have the confidence to say, oh, I know a woman, you're feeling a board. You know, we've got board-ready women in WIMBIZ. We've got a WIMBOD Institute where we train women to be board-ready for any appointment, for any sector in Nigeria. So the women are there. If they're not there in particular sectors, we're looking for them. We're actively building them up. The same thing with WIMPO. We're looking for more women in politics, in governance, in public service. Okay, so it's an intention, is the intentionality to drive these areas where there are gaps.
Let's talk about how well you maximize the power of partnership. I mean, if you're talking about the SDGs, that's goal number 17, which is very important in driving all these goals that we want to achieve. So how well do you use partnership as you operate in Nigeria?
That's a fantastic question, and I love it. You know, I told I was in the private sector, and one of the things I did was I networked a lot, you know, and in networking, I was dealing with individuals, corporate organizations, multinationals, and all of that. So I needed to harness that. There is everything, the backbone of AACCF is on partnerships and collaborations. I will not have an AACCF without my partners. And like I've told you in trying to share my story, I did this with this and that. And I want to say that I'm blessed in the sense that I don't think there's a partner I have approached and laid the justifications and the reasons that have not supported me. So I think that having worked in the corporate sector for 30 years and building a reputation, right, and my integrity and nothing is, you know, everything is on point, you know, that has really helped. So partnership, I mean, I believe even with businesses and with everything, I mean, you know, Channels is a partner. So whatever you do, whatever I have done, the power of partnership and strengthening it and looking for more partnership. I'm not resting on my oars, because I also want international partners that would basically help to project and scale up, everything I plan and want to do with AACCF.
Now to the future, where do you hope to see the AACCF move to in the activities you do and how much impact you'll be making in the society going forward?
Right. AACCF for the future. We're 2 years old, right? And I even if I say so myself, we have done a few things, but there's still a whole lot more to get done. Now, with my partners, like I just said, I need to continue to nurture, the existing ones and then look out for other partners. That is number one. I need to also ensure that the impact and the transformational difference that I want to see that AACCF is making in communities is appreciable. I need to ensure that the monitoring and the evaluation system is in place. I need to ensure that with every activity, every intervention that I'm doing, it's measurable, it's accountable, it's transparent. So by doing all of that, I have to earn the trust to ensure that the mandate that I've set for myself, for the community, with my partners, are being done and are being met. So the key thing is to ensure that AACCF remains reputable. It remains the community NGO of choice in terms of if funders are looking for partners to execute what they want to achieve, they say, oh, go to AACCF. I would like that to happen. I would like it to transcend, to be a household name in Nigeria. I'd like it to transcend also in across borders. Remain focused, keep my eyes on the goal, on the mandate, and ensure that with everything, my partners trust me. I'm infusing technology. I'm making friends with Google, with Microsoft, all of them, so that, I would have contributed with SDG goals, helping to achieve and reduce that, and also serving my community, serving Ogun State, serving Nigeria, and serving myself, basically, to ensure that this is what a legacy that I would leave behind.
That's where we draw the curtains on today's edition of Kaleidoscope. But it's never goodbye, because you can always watch past editions on youtube.com/channelsweb. Click on playlist, then scroll to Kaleidoscope and watch past editions of the program. I'll definitely see you again very soon. I'm Anne Nwawadu. Thank you for watching.